Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. It's a process that repeats itself because of the hard work, the intelligence, and all the great qualities that Nick Saban possesses and therefore attracts to the University of Alabama's football program. It is astounding. It is astounding. I think we saw this game in last year's national semifinal, Notre Dame, Alabama. We saw the same type game out of Alabama. Brian Robinson carried the ball time and time again, over and over and over and over and over. And with Alabama having a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and explosive wide receivers and a penchant for passing the football, an SEC championship game record passing total against Georgia, what did Alabama come out and do? Series number one, they threw one pass. And that finished off the drive. That was the touchdown pass that finished the drive, completed the drive. Up until then, what was it, 12 or 13 runs? They determined that Cincinnati was strong in the secondary. They determined that they were without John Mechie. They determined that they could possess the football, that they had a size, and beyond a size, a physical advantage of NFL-type girth and talent up front against a Cincinnati front line that was not accustomed to playing those kind of players. And so they just ran the ball over and over and over and over with a number of purposes. Number one, thinking, hey, if we can prove here in the first drive of the game that we are a dominant force, that they cannot stop us up front, that we are truly not just better, bigger, stronger on paper, but it actually plays itself out in the field. Why take risks? And then let's see what our defense can do. And if that number on the defensive side is single digits like it was, wow. That was an astonishing performance. It really was. It was, when you hear the term workmanlike, you think of somebody who's very capable at their job. In the sports realm, when we use that term, workmanlike, that's really good at their job, but maybe not super, super talented. Well, this was workmanlike from a super talented team. Every year, we try to determine where Alabama could be faltering, deteriorating. And of course, not every positional unit is going to be as good as its predecessors. Who's the greatest quarterback in the Alabama Nick Saban run? Probably Tua Tagovailoa, maybe Mac Jones for one season. Bryce Young certainly made his claim this year. The best running back room might have been led by Mark Ingram or T.J. Yeldon or Derrick Henry or. The offensive line, I think of the 2012 unit. The wide receiver core that had the 4 first-rounders, certainly from 2017 through 20, that would be your unit. You can go to each unit and you can argue that there have been more dominant units under Nick Saban at that particular positional unit, but they never let up at any of those spots. They're a championship program because they are elite recruiters at every positional unit, and they have great coaching at every positional unit, develop it. And yes, do we become nitpicky to say Alabama's linebackers this year aren't that good? That means they're not all-time great. That's what that means when we state that. They're really not that good this year. That means they're still one of the top 3 to 5 units in the country. This Alabama wide receiver unit, it's not that good. It's not all-time great. It's not Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, great. Jalen Waddle, great, elite, great of all time. It's still one of the top 5 wide receiver units in the country. And so Alabama had a game plan, and they didn't have to leave the game plan. They had an offensive game plan that was obvious. The defensive game plan that produced only giving up two field goals, that allowed the offensive game plan to be what it was. And it produces a 27-6 win. They even pleased you bettors who took the Tide by covering the spread. I said 42-17. I expected a little bit more offense from both teams, but not a whole lot. A little bit more. I guess in points production, you could say a whole lot more, Mark. What are you talking about? Twice as much. But more of a feel of a game in which Alabama, well, they led 17-3 at halftime. I envisioned something in that range, maybe a little bit more, maybe tack on another touchdown each team. 24-10 at halftime, and then they take them to the woodshed and they continue to stretch the lead. We have focused on Alabama, rightfully so. They are the champions. They are the champions of the 2020 season. They are the champions of this era. They most likely are going to be the champions of this season. Who's going to beat that? If it did not look impressive to you, it's because it was so methodical. It wasn't explosive because it didn't have to be explosive, but that team was super explosive just a couple of weeks ago against Georgia. Is that a knock on Georgia? Is that really telling of Georgia? It's really not. This Alabama program under Nick Saban, it basically has become what Bill Belichick has done in the NFL with the New England Patriots. They can be a different team every week. They can be the team that they need to be that particular week, both from an offensive standpoint, most notably from the offensive side, but also from the defensive side. They weren't the high-flying, chuck it down the field, let her rip Alabama offense today. They didn't need to be, and they didn't choose to be or want to be. 27-6. And Cincinnati, you know what? From a physical standpoint, in terms of looking like they belonged out there, to me, they did. That's a good Cincinnati team. They're good. They're legitimately good. They not only earned a playoff spot, and I didn't like the schedule. They did not play a tough enough schedule to, under an objective system, earn a playoff spot. They did not. And would Cincinnati lose games, I believe, in a Power 5 conference, other than maybe the Pac-12? Yes, they would. I believe they would. If they had to go through the grinder of the Big Ten or the SEC, would they lose 2 or 3 games? I believe they would. They gave it their best shot, though, tonight, and they showed that they belonged. Belonged in the sense that from an athletic standpoint and from a football playing standpoint, they didn't embarrass themselves. They didn't get blown away. This was not Alabama Notre Dame in the BCS championship game of 2012. This was not LSU Oklahoma 2019 national semifinal game at the Sugar Bowl, or wherever they played that game. It might have been the Peach Bowl. This was not that game. Alabama was just so airtight on defense, so sound, and just basically enforced will on Cincinnati offensively. From the offensive standpoint, Bama imposed its will. Defensively, I said it a number of times, and when I forecast these games and I tell you what I think is going to happen, you know what? A lot of the times I'm right. A lot of the times I'm wrong. So we will see in the second game some of the key points that I've pointed out for the last month, see if they come to roost. But in this game, I threw up my hands a number of times in response to callers and to comments and questions, and just in our discussions that we had with Georgia media and Alabama media. And I simply said, How is Cincinnati going to score? If you checked out my prediction video from earlier today, I said Desmond Ritter's a good quarterback. He's a really good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. Not a great quarterback. He's not Trevor Lawrence. He's not Justin Fields. He's not fill in the blank. He's not Mac Jones. He's going to earn a paycheck in the NFL. Not necessarily playing. He's going to earn a paycheck in the NFL. He can hold down the position. He's a really good college quarterback. I just didn't see how he could possibly carry this thing because we all knew Cincinnati was not going to run the ball on Alabama. It was not going to happen. And it did not happen in any way, shape, or form. Was Cincinnati able to run the ball? So Desmond Ridder, I think I'm subliminally, as I'm listening to Reese Davis, Desmond Ridder against the Alabama defense, no chance. No chance. You can sponsor us here at the Voice of College Football. Please contact me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. The benefits, I can explain. I will explain the benefits. Hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. The benefits to you and your company. Sponsor us here at the Voice of College Football. Let's see what you guys are all talking about here. Mr. Bobby says, closer than I thought it would be. I figured Bama would put up 55. It was, from a competitive standpoint, closer than I thought it would be. Just watching, if you didn't keep score and you just watched guys hit each other and run from sideline to sideline and pursue each other and all that, then I would have said, yeah, Cincinnati's playing at a higher level and they look like they belong on the field more so than I anticipated. Yeah, Bobby, it was one of those old school Alabama beatdowns. It looked like 2009. But again, it did look like the semifinal from last year against Notre Dame. Bobby, I would agree in that the game wasn't close, but Cincinnati competed. They fully competed. But yeah, after Alabama scored the first touchdown and got a couple stops, it was pretty easy to see that the game was not in doubt. I never had a thought that Alabama would lose this game. When it was 10-3, and it stayed at 10-3 for quite some time until Alabama scored with about 4 minutes left in the first half. Think 10-3. And I was thinking, yes, Alabama's got this game, and they are solid here, but they're allowing Cincinnati to hang around. And if the Bearcats would get fortunate, I don't want to say lucky, if they would get fortunate with some turnovers or some key plays in special teams, like they almost did. What about the punt down the middle of the field that was botched by the Alabama return guy and almost picked up by the Bearcats? That would have helped. I believe it was either 10-3 or 17-3 at that point. They needed a couple plays like that, not one, maybe three like that. But Alabama's not the team to count on to deliver those for you, to give you those gifts. There you go, Yakov 22. Similar to last year's Notre Dame playoff game, which Alabama won 31-14, gave up a late touchdown to make it look a little closer. I would say that this Cincinnati, I'll put it this way. This Cincinnati defensive effort was better, looked better, but Notre Dame had to deal with a better offense. They had to deal with Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and John Mechie. And Mac Jones and Bryce Young, how do you rate and evaluate those two quarterbacks at this point? Well, Mac Jones did not struggle the way Bryce Young struggled today. We never saw that out of Mac Jones once he became the starting quarterback and got his feet wet, got established, and was rolling. A couple games early in Mac Jones's relief of Tua Tagovailoa, yeah, he struggled, in quotes, struggling in an Alabama sense. Venice is here. I'm scared. Got bubble guts. Go blue. Yeah, this is the time in which you're super, super nervous, uptight, excited, all those things at the same time. Michigan's 23 minutes away from playing in a college football playoff game that nobody thought that they would play in, that they came close to playing in 2016, excruciatingly close. Of course, they had to win a Big Ten championship game. And then in 2018, it appeared as though they had that team, that program that could get to a college football playoff. But then they fell off so distinctly since then, decidedly, that the climb appeared as though it was real. It was substantial. But they popped back immediately. And they're here. Khalid says, Georgia about to light them up. They better be scared. Mr. Bobby 24, last time we see the G5 of the playoffs until expansion. Now, if this game would have been 52-6, I would hope that the playoff committee, if they're doing their job going forward, would continue to evaluate teams based on that team's merits and not go back and think, Cincinnati. To me, this is a non-factor. It should be a non-factor. Just on principle, it should be a non-factor in evaluating future teams. But even from a practical sense, Cincinnati did not confirm anything for Group of Five schools. They did not say, oh, whoa, wow, we were wrong. They really belong. Nor did they embarrass or nullify the Group of Five argument. This was no worse than Alabama, Michigan State, Alabama, Washington, and others. Good to see you, JT Sports. John Shields, I have that feeling too. Even though this was not the type of performance that people just jaw drop and gaze at thinking, wow, that was impressive. If you're a football person that loves to watch football and has been watching football for a long time, that was impressive. That was physically and schematically impressive. But to the average fan, that's not impressive because it wasn't chucking 50-yard touchdown passes down the field one after another after another. But man, loaded. They are loaded. And we could be sitting here 5 years from now, and Nick Saban could be winning national championships. Venice, Bama, not just the most talented team, they're also the best coach team in the sport. Bottom line, boom. That statement says it all. Tim, the top man, I hope we don't have an all SEC championship. I don't think it's good for the sport. I don't want to see it either. But I want to see the best two teams play, and that might be what it is. G-Dog Forever. I predicted Bama 45-17. Well, I was right there with you. That did not happen, but they did dominate. Well, actually, I think that this might have been more impressive to a football person. I also predicted Michigan will be a tough game for Georgia. I hope I'm wrong there. Go Dogs. Jack says Michigan's better than Georgia. David says that the Cincinnati offensive line got owned. Yeah. Yakov 22, Alabama is similar to UCLA basketball of the 60s and 70s. Adams got Georgia by 2 touchdowns. D. Brown, if Georgia players start the game chippy, it means they are scared. David says, will another Ohio State transfer help an SEC team win a national championship? Yeah. Not just help that particular team, but spearhead that team. Joe Burrow is one of the most important players to a team that we've seen in years. Jamison Williams of course, plays wide receiver. It's a dependent position, so it's not nearly as important as Joe Burrow, but he provided that missing spark, that missing piece, that missing home run hitter that Alabama did not have in the absence of the 4 number 1 picks. Droop 75. Can the G5 team shut up now? I don't think so. I don't think so. Shanktopotamus. Apparently, Cincinnati is no Boise State. Boise State did not play that. They did not play them. Boise State, Oklahoma. That was really the Boise State splash into the big boy section of the BCS Bowls, was against Oklahoma in the famous Statue of Liberty play, 43-42 with Travis Johnson. They had regular season games against Georgia and Virginia Tech and Oregon that they proved worthy of. But in terms of postseason play, that was it for Boise State. It was that one game against Oklahoma. They didn't play that. Oklahoma was a top 10 team in the country. We have learned something during this playoff era, that there is a huge difference between being the 10th best team in the country and being the best team in the country. I wish it weren't the case. Jeff, good to see you here. LJT, as usual, and no shock, Bama wins again. Congratulations. In case you missed it the first time or the second time or the third time, Jeff says, roll Tide. Matt Page, Georgia is not afraid of Michigan. I hope they're not. Georgia plays in the SEC. They played Bama on numerous occasions. They played Clemson earlier this year. I would not think Georgia to be afraid of Michigan. Smash the like. Thank you so much, MH. Folks, I know you're thinking football right now. Of course, you're thinking nothing but football and watching this Michigan-Georgia game that kicks off in about 10 minutes. But please smash the like button. Subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football if you have yet to do so. If you enjoy the content that we deliver and you're not subscribed, please subscribe and check out the other, just about every helmet that you see behind us has a team channel. And we do admit, Wisconsin, North Carolina, there's a few that we've let slip. We just don't have the manpower to deliver content on every single one all the time, every day. But almost all of them we do, including Alabama, including Georgia, including Michigan. Couple super chats coming down. Thank you so much, John. We appreciate it. John's got nothing to say, but he's going to contribute. And John, we appreciate that so much. That's very nice of you. BGPO Football Funk, support Mark. DeAndre, your consistency with these super chats, and even if I think you know this, I hope you know this, DeAndre, if you don't give another one, I will not even think twice about it. You call up, provide great conversation and discussion. You love college football. You love the history of college football. We have great talks. You've supported. You've challenged me, which that's why we're here as well. It's not all just a bunch of pat on the backs. You challenge me when you think I'm wrong. That's great. DeAndre, appreciate your support. Thank you so much for that. And my 7 consecutive picks against the spread was broken with that lousy Sun Bowl game, Central Michigan against Washington State. I had no business picking that game. I had no idea what was going to happen in that game, but I did pick Wake Forest to cover. I did pick Bama to cover. So that means we're on a 10-1 run against the spread. 10-1 against the spread. Staple BO5. I've not predicted the Penn State Arkansas game. That'll be on Patreon. So I did supply your college football playoff predictions right here on YouTube. You saw the videos, hopefully. 42-17 Bama. I said Bama would cover. They did. And but I've got to honor the folks on Patreon, and that's where the predictions go. So once again, 10-1 the last 11 games. I told you that the group of 5 for me is a crapshoot, and I'm throwing darts at the wall. But in the Power 5 games, I can't guarantee anything. I have losing streaks just like everybody else, but I generally kick it into gear this time of the bowl week. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Troop 75, best in the business. Thank you so much for that. That is much appreciated. Thank you so much, Troop 75. Let's hope that the game that's coming up in a few minutes, game number 2, we are owed as College Football Nation a great game. Let's get a great game. It's one thing to enjoy it like we did yesterday. I hope everybody, aside from you Tennessee fans, I feel bad for you. That was probably a blown call. And if not, it was at least a very controversial call, the type call that we hope a game doesn't come down to. My point being, that was a great game. That was just, I enjoyed that game so much. And I knew that was going to be one of my favorite games of the bowl season. Tennessee Purdue, it had that 48-45 type game written all over it. And so I enjoyed the game, but in the grand scheme of things, that means Purdue's 9-4, and they're going to finish in the top 25, and it means Tennessee finished 7-6, and that's what it is. This is a national semifinal game to get to the national championship game. Let's have that kind of game. They're not going to score 93 points. That's not what I'm saying, but let's have that kind of competitive game down to the wire. That would be phenomenal. We've only seen this a handful of times in the semifinal games. Ohio State, Bama, 2014. Georgia, Oklahoma at the Rose Bowl, 2017 overtime game. That's pretty much it. Oh. Of course, the Clemson, Ohio State 29-23 game in 2019. That was a barn burner as well. Fish pointing out that now the SEC can boast a little bit against the group of 5. They're now 1-3 after losing to Army, Houston, UCF. Yeah, 1-3 now. And the SEC ups its bowl record to postseason record. It is a bowl. It's a bowl game. Okay, 2-5. All right, Ryder 452. Quick keys to the game from Michigan and Georgia. Go Blue. Hashtag Go Blue. All right. As I've stated for a number of weeks and more succinctly in the video that was posted today, here are the keys for me. First and foremost, and some people are going to be shaking their heads when they think, Mark, you've said this 50 times. So people keep asking me for the keys to the game. So that's why I'm here. First and foremost, if I'm Kirby Smart, the day after we got that assignment, the day of the assignment against Michigan, and I'm watching that Ohio State game, I'm leaning on my offensive line coach saying, can our 2 tackles block those 2 ends, Ajabo and Hutchinson? Because Ohio State thought theirs could on islands, and they couldn't. And those guys are going to play in the NFL and start in the NFL. Our guys are going to start in the NFL too. That doesn't mean they could block those 2 guys. Can we do it? And even if we decided, you know what, we believe our guys are that much better, they can block Hutch and Ajabo, I would have a quick plan B to go to, which would be to max protect. All right, that's one key to the game. Georgia's right tackle, left tackle, blocking Ajabo and Hutchinson. Point number 2, Brock Bowers. He is a beast. He's not only a physical beast at tight end for Georgia as a freshman, he has already become so adept at becoming a receiving tight end, knowing how to run against zone defenses, how to run against man defenses, positioning his body against the defender to block him out, to catch the ball, to high point the football. Brock Bowers is a matchup nightmare for Michigan. All right, Blake Corum. Hassan Haskins needs to get the ball like 5 times more than Blake Corum, but when Blake Corum does get the ball, is it meaningful? Is it effective? Is it Blake Corum got the ball in space on 3rd and 8, made a guy miss and got 10 yards to get the first down? Or he broke one off for 50. Against the Georgia defense, probably not going to happen against that speed. Stetson Bennett turning the ball over. That's what he's been. That's who he's been. If you break down these games against the better teams that he's played, most notably Alabama, of course, the 2 times he's played Alabama. Yeah. And last year's 2020 Florida game, he plays pretty well. 90-some% of the plays, but it's not good enough because he makes 3 or 4 crucial mistakes, bad mistakes. Is Stetson Bennett going to make bad mistakes? Cade McNamara generally does not make the mistakes. Bennett does. Otherwise, they're a wash. They are similar talents and type players and level of player. And lastly, is just the Georgia wave and wave over wave over wave of talent. Offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, secondary, wideouts, all over the place. George Pickens, though, is a difference guy for them. Where is he going to be in all of this? We saw him make one big play in the SEC championship game downfield. Now he's got 3 to 4 weeks to continue to gain confidence in his torn ACL and to get fully into it, fully recovered, and also get those practice reps with Stetson Bennett to feel comfortable with him. Check out the splits. George Pickens last year, JT Daniels at quarterback versus Stetson Bennett. He was so more effective, prolific with JT Daniels at the helm than Stetson Bennett. But now he has had reps with Stetson Bennett week after week after week after practice after practice after practice. George Pickens, look for him. It's not going to be most likely a 10-catch, 187-yard game. It's going to be 4 catches for 94, but it's going to be big. Talking covers. On game day, they debated best team ever. Corso said 2019 LSU. I could make a joke about that, but I won't because I respect Lee Corso. Desmond Howard said Alabama. Herbie said the 1995 Huskers. What's your take on that? The 1995 Nebraska Huskers, they were the most dominant against their schedule. When Desmond Howard is saying Alabama who? Is that 2009? Is that 2020? Is that when? So that's my take on it, because when you talk all time, whether you're talking all-time players or all-time teams, the best way that I can measure it is how dominant were they against their contemporaries. And that Nebraska team in 1995 is the only team you're going to find in the last 5 decades that was dominant and decisive in every game. They did not play a close game. There was a game that got within 2 touchdowns, but it was not a 2-touchdown game. They dominated everybody. They blew out everybody, and they played a tough schedule. All right, we're ready to hit the field in South Florida. Enjoy Michigan, Georgia. Talking covers. Thank you again so much for the Super Chat contribution. We'll be back here after the game to take your calls. Bring some friends with you, and we'll talk up college football, the playoff, and the bowls as soon as Michigan and Georgia have walked off the field.